Welcome back to the Bourbon Note, everybody. I'm Ben. Got some Total Wine bourbon on the bar. Let's get into it. So on the bar tonight, I've got, bam, this is Old Huckleberry Bourbon Whiskey. So as far as this being a Total Wine bourbon, I believe this is one of their Spirits Direct offerings. And I say I believe it is because I don't know how things work in your state, but in Minnesota, other liquor stores are allowed to still sell the Spirits Direct brands that are kind of synonymous with Total Wine. People kind of consider them to be Total Wine house brands. But in Minnesota, you can actually sell those brands at any liquor store. And from what I've learned through seeing that, is that Total Wine really marks up their Spirits Direct products. And so what's happening now is liquor stores are starting to sell these products for much cheaper than Total Wine. And a lot of times Total Wine is the cheapest one because they're a big box store. But I think their bread and butter is selling marked up, but still, a lot of them are still reasonably priced, but marked up Spirits Direct bourbons, from what I can tell. And I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. But getting into the bourbon, this here is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, 102 proof, 6-year age stated. So, I mean, stats-wise, it's not bad. I think Total Wine charges about $50 for this. I paid $30 for it, and I don't know. It wasn't on my radar or anything. I was just browsing at the liquor store, and you know, $30 for a 6-year age stated 102 proofer. I'll bite. It's from Kentucky, you know, so it's probably sourced from someplace decent. A lot of those are $17.92. I don't know if this is. Doesn't say. But on the nose, those first couple of snibs, I wasn't getting much out of it, to be honest. After a few more, now I'm just getting a ton of ethanol. There is some nice black pepper and oak on the nose, but it's mostly bite. I guess I'm just not getting a ton of notes as far as like flavors and aromas, just kind of ethanol and maybe kind of a general bourbon note. And then, yeah, just kind of that black pepper and oak. All right, well, you know what? Let's get it in the palate, see what happens. Cheers. So, over the course of doing this channel, I've learned that you can't always judge a whiskey on your first sip of it. But on that first sip, I actually liked it. And I'm not saying I'm trying to not like this. It would behoove me to like this bottle because I paid for it. But it was interesting because the nose was all bite and the palate wasn't. And that's a very approachable 102 proof in the sense that it didn't have any ethanol bite on that first sip. And again, that might change, you know, further I get into this glass. But that first one was just very smooth, but not in a negative, watered down way. Just very rounded out and approachable, no bite to it, and then just like a nice building heat and a nice little building wave of flavor to it. Kind of basic flavors. I think I was just a little distracted by how, again, approachable, and I'm saying that to try to avoid saying smooth because smooth usually means just way too watered down, and that's not what I'm getting at with this one. My initial thought was somebody who's new to whiskey could have a sip of this and get the full flavor of 102 proofer without the extra bites. When you're first new to whiskey, 102 proof is a little intimidating when you're used to, you know, sub 90 proof stuff. So let's get into the second sip here before, you know, I say too much about this without having a little bit more to go off of. Cheers. Man, I am having an interesting experience with this. I had a few sips when I cut away there. It feels like all the flavor is at the front of your mouth, like the front of the palate. There's not really much on the finish, but wherever the finish would normally last, it feels like it just kind of stays at the front of the palate and doesn't go anywhere after that. It's very bizarre. The flavors are good, but they're more they're more in that spice category. They're more in that oak spice, black pepper spice. I don't know what the mash bill is on this. I'm not getting like necessarily a rye sort of flavor to it, but you know, it could be attributed to maybe a high rye content. But that being said, there is a nice, just like I had in the first sip, there's a really nice kind of building wave of heat, but it feels like it's kind of hollow in the middle and then kind of hollow at the end again, I guess. I don't know. This is so weird. It's like you take the sip, it's smooth and approachable. There's a wave of flavor that sits on the front of the palate. It's spicy, it's hot, and then in the middle of that, it kind of dies down, and then you have the finish, and the finish dies off quick. Maybe I'm just overthinking this one. But overall, this is not bad. For $30, sure, I'm not mad about buying this at all. I don't know, I'd go $50 for it, but, you know, kind of an interesting bourbon, if I'm being honest. It's nothing, there's nothing like, it's not an in-depth, you know, complex bourbon by any stretch of the imagination, but, you know, it'll get the job done for sure. All right, let's have a little bit more of this. Cheers. So overall, I actually like this, but I think I like it because like the flavors are nothing too like original or different or unique or complex. They're just nice. It's good at what it does. But what I'm finding interesting is just that, you know, the more I sip on it, I'm having that same experience. It's smooth up front, then the building heat, and then the finish takes place like at the front of your palate. It's not, you don't get like a Kentucky hug or anything like that. It's like it dies up and it just kind of on the back, but it just sits at the front. I don't know. I don't even think I'm making sense at this point anymore.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
I don't know. And to be honest, this isn't my first bourbon of the night. And I'm not saying that to imply that I might be drunk, and that's why I'm not making sense about this. This is only my second bourbon of the night. But it's just, you know, so it's not like a fresh palate thing, you know. So I'm just having a very interesting experience with this. I would love to know if you guys have had this. You know, as far as the Total Wine thing that I mentioned at the beginning, sometimes I like to review these Total Wine brands because a lot of them kind of suck. A lot of them are just kind of mid-level. You know, a lot of them are 1792 products. I think I mentioned that. I don't know if this one is. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but I don't, you know, I guess I don't know 1792 well enough as a brand to be able to pick it out and say that that's definitely what it is. But it has some similarities with some other stuff I've had. And then sometimes there's little hidden gems. I mean, there's actually been a few of those Total Wine products. And I say Total Wine again, they're Spirits Direct, but they're kind of synonymous with Total Wine. I've had a few of them that I've actually really liked. And so when I mentioned before about liquor stores being able to sell those bottles, it seems that, like I said at the beginning, that Total Wine, maybe not on these, you know, mid-priced ones. Well, this one, I guess that liquor store was selling it for $20 cheaper, so I guess on these too. But, you know, they have some of their top tier stuff. Like, for example, the McFarland's Reserve 13 year. It's like a sherry or port finished or PX sherry. I don't know what it is. It's finished 13-year bourbon. It's really good, actually. Total Wine sells it for $100. You know, Spirits Liquor up in Melrose, for those of you that live in Minnesota, you know, they sell it for $50 with their standard markup, from what I understand. So, you know, this one being $20 cheaper, and when it's a $50 bourbon sold for $20, I mean, you're selling it, it's almost a 50% reduction in the price. So Total Wine is really, really making, I think, a decent amount of money off of these products. Might have something to do with why every single time you go into Total Wine, they seem to always be pushing the Total Wine products. And every time you see the little tag, you know, this is Bob's favorite bourbon, it's always one of those. The amount of times I've gone into Total Wine and there's some person next to me, you know, asking the guy like, hey, I know somebody who's into bourbon, what do you think I should get him as a gift? And it's like Lazy River. The amount of times I have heard the Total Wine person recommend Lazy River, and it just infuriates me because Lazy River sucks. I think they get their bread and butter off of that stuff. So I love seeing these in stores. I don't know if I said it at the beginning. I probably did, but the liquor store that I got this from, it's in Monticello, Minnesota, for those of you in Minnesota. They've actually started putting tags underneath with Total Wine's price and their price, just saying, why would you go to Total Wine? Just buy it here. So other liquor stores are catching on to the fact that they can sell these products for much cheaper than Total Wine. And I think, for the most part, most of them should be priced closer to what, you know, liquor stores are selling them for. This one should be for sure. I think this is a good $30 bourbon. I don't like it for $50. I mean, I still like the bourbon, but at that price point, you know, I wouldn't rebuy it again. So anyway, folks, let me know if you guys have had this one, if you had the same experience or different than me, what you think of it. This is, what is this called again? Old Huckleberry. On the Bourbon Note, I'm Ben. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you on the next one.